Yeah, the main conflict is the same in almost every company, and it's a mismatch between the timelines at which they view the world. The C-suite is getting flogged by Wall Street. They're thinking about quarterly results. Even if they don't want to, they get pulled into that. They're thinking about annual results. R&D, if we're talking about the R part of R&D, it's not just D. That part of it, the timelines are much longer. They're not looking a year out. They're probably looking at least 2, and it should be longer than that. And so that's a significant mismatch, because if you have a C-suite that's focused on this quarter's results, getting their attention on something that's 2 years away from revenue is hard. And what's even harder is getting the right level of funding to build those projects up over time. So that's a big mismatch.
So how are companies successfully, I guess, closing that gap?
Yeah, it's difficult, but I think the most important thing is to have true executive sponsorship for things that are going on within R&D. We found in companies where executives are genuinely engaged in R&D initiatives, small pieces of their time, that you really can carry things forward, you can build support over time, you can maintain your funding, you can get more when you need it, and you can bring more truly new things to market. But it's hard to do.
Do you remember any kind of great argument you had in R&D?
Where we tend to see arguments with our clients is when we tell them that an idea they're pursuing is not a good idea. Because if they've asked us to take a look at it, somebody really likes it. They've fallen in love with it. And when you come back and tell them, no, don't do this, sometimes you really have to do a lot of convincing. I'll give you an example. A couple years ago, a client we have who makes a lot of sensors for automotive, but in-engine sensors, oxygen sensors, CO2 sensors, things like that. Then an executive go off to a conference, and he learned at that conference most of the growth in automotive is coming with cameras, CMOS sensors. And he came back, he said, look, we already know all the OEMs, they already trust us for sensors, why don't we start making a camera sensor? Makes sense, seems like it's a good technological adjacency. So they asked us to take a look at it because they were having some arguments internally, and we came back 5 weeks later and said, you guys need to stay out of this at all costs. And the reason you need to is because most of the value here is being captured by software manufacturers. And in fact, a single software manufacturer in Israel that's since been acquired by Intel. And they made the software that interprets the images coming from the camera. On the hardware side, which is what you've been talking about, it's fast commoditizing, and your largest competitor is going to be Sony. No one wants to get involved in that. Well, they didn't like that, and we literally spent an hour going through scrap after scrap after scrap of data until they finally gave in, and they canceled that project and they moved on, which is a really valuable outcome, because now they're not wasting time on something that will not be successful for the company, and they can try out another idea.
Do you ever the fear when you get into one of these arguments, like, we're putting our job on the line because they just want to hear yes?
I don't, and the reason that I don't is that the instant we start telling people what they want to hear, we've lost all of our credibility. I think part of the value proposition of any outsider in a situation like this is the fact that they're bringing an objective view that is not going to be influenced by internal politics. Oh, this vice president loves it, I better do everything I can to justify it. Our value proposition is we're going to follow the data where it leads, and when we make recommendations, it's going to be based on that and not any of that internal stuff.